Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And you guys are listening to the GoingSoloMedia.com and also our Going Solo TV. I'm so excited that we have that for you now. We're on, if I'm saying it right, on the Roku channel, and you guys can find all of our shows there now. So those of you that don't know me, I am Cece Shatz. You're listening to the Going Solo with Cece show. I am the Doyenne of relationship building, and I am a divorce, dating, and a life coach. And somebody asks me always, what does Doyenne mean? Well, Doyenne is really like the connector, right? They're like the leader. They're the ones that really help move and put everyone together to connect. And that's what we are here on Going Solo Network. I'm so excited to be able to share all of our wonderful shows here with you. But tonight, we've got a very exciting show because we have a wonderful guest with us. Let's bring him right up. We're having a little trouble here with some of the thing. Hopefully it'll be okay. But we have Andy Heller here with us. He's a wonderful author. Welcome, Andy.
Cece, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it is so great having you. But let's share with the audience real quick your book, because I think your book is really worth reading. Definitely. You're the author of Take the High Road, Divorce with Compassion for Yourself and Your Family. And let's talk a little bit about that before we start the show. Let's talk about the book and why you wrote such an awesome book.
Sure. I'll give you a quick history. I'll try to do this in 2 or 3 minutes, you see. So I'm just a businessman, guys. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a divorce attorney. I co-authored 2 real estate investing books about 15, 16 years ago. I swore I'd never write another book. It's a lot of work, particularly if you're a perfectionist as I am. But I changed my mind about 8 years ago. I had a divorce myself, and it wasn't easy. And I was also very fortunate that my ex-wife was kind of understood some things that we should do in terms of setting up therapy for our children and a co-parent counselor and some things I discuss in my book. So as I got through the process myself, during the process, Cece, I read about 3 or 4 books cover to cover to help me with my own process. And one of my coping mechanisms when I'm stressed is I just start to write. When my mother was in hospice, I started to write, and part of my notes became an article that got featured in and picked up in 5 national newspapers on the Mother's Day after she passed away. Wow. So I'm doing the same thing through my divorce. And at this point, I've read a number of books myself. And I looked at my notes. I'm like, oh my goodness, here I got an outline for a good book. And I noticed with the books that I'd read and the books I'd researched, there was what I referred to as a gap in the divorce book space. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So divorce is an experiential journey. And during this journey, you do some things right, you do some things not so good, all right? And the benefit of therapy, the benefit of these books is they're kind of like a little birdie in your ears whispering, hey, don't lose your cool here, or hey, in this situation, you probably should do this or should do that. And through making these mistakes, you realize some things you should have done. But the problem is that we all face going through the process is that we need these tips on day 1, not day 150 or 250 or 500, whatever. So the basis of my book is through countless interviews with therapists, co-parent counselors, mediators, attorneys, couples who divorce successfully, couples who divorce with challenges, children's therapists. I take 46 tips and strategies that are typically only learned experientially, and I advance them and arm them to the divorcee on day 1. And this is something that none of the existing books do. And the goal is that if you know these mistakes and have these strategies on day 1, the whole process for you, for your soon-to-be ex-partner, and most importantly for your children, will be healthier and easier. And even though my book has only been out for a handful of months, the reviews from particularly the therapy community, I am so proud of. Their say in my book is a roadmap for divorcees. And hopefully I can help some people here. The last thing I'll say is the fact that I'm not a therapist, I'm just a businessman, who is trying to put together a collection of tips for divorcees, hopefully gives me a very unique perspective. And this is not my career, Cece. Sure, I'd like to have a successful book, but I know this sounds corny. My goal is to help people because I went through the process myself. I know I certainly was not perfect and could have used that little birdie in my ear. So hopefully this book will provide that for a lot of your listeners and make it easier for some people. And that will be rewarding for me.
Now, I tell you what, when I looked at the title, it really hit me. It hit home for me because, I run a divorce group here in our Tampa Bay area, and I've done it for years, and we've had hundreds of people go through it. And I'm very proud of being able to connect those, together to be able to bond together and pay it forward. And so that's pretty much what we do. But one of my favorite sayings is take the high road. Is because so often we lose ourselves in arguments of just minute things that we think are going to make ourselves feel better at the end if we so-called win, costing us a lot of money and a lot of pain and suffering, when really we could have just taken the high road and come out of it so much clearer and our families with so much better intact. So, I often say, look at the bigger picture. And if it really isn't something that you need to fight for, then just take the high road and save yourself and your family to be able to go through the process, because divorce is a process that we go through. So everyone out there, I want you to know that if you're watching the show, we do have in our comments, we have how you can get the book. So we have it right there on Facebook, and we also have it right on YouTube too. So it's right there for you to be able to click and go and get the book right through Amazon. The book is anywhere a book is going to be sold. So just know that wherever you go for your local books that you like to go to, you can go there and buy the books. You can go Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the places to be able to buy a book. It's right there for you. But I wanted to showcase that because I think that that's important, and you've done, a good service to not only you, your family, but those around you that are going through this difficult time. But Andy, let's get on with our subject tonight, because we're going to talk about the absolute must-haves before finalizing your divorce. And so let's start with that process, because when we start a divorce, when we start that process, it's very daunting, isn't it?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I completely agree with what you said. So many times, and so many of the couples I interviewed end up going down a rabbit hole where they end up burning thousands of dollars in legal bills, fighting over things that really they didn't even care about beforehand.
Right.
Yeah.
And so often we want to kind of we feel like our partner's making us suffer, and we want to make them suffer, right? We want them to be accountable for whatever. Like I know in the state of Florida, you can be unfaithful and you don't get punished for it, right? So often, individuals go through court system thinking they're going to punish their ex for their behavior, when really all it does is cost you a lot of money and a lot of heartache. Yep. So, that's probably one thing we should know before we start the process is that you're not going to come out a winner. You're just going to send your attorney's family through college.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So anyhow, what other tips can you give us?
Well, I'll start with answering your question I'll give you some of the must-haves in my book. Again, I can't cover all 46 tips right now, but some of the must-haves I touch on are the following. First is make sure you have a tiebreaker mechanism built into your divorce that keeps you and your spouse out of court. I cannot count how many interviewees who I interviewed where they said, well, I don't think we need that because we get along. That's fine. But what about 5 years later if one of the spouses has a new partner that nobody likes and now you're fighting where you didn't before? So the most common way to do this, everybody, is what's called a special master. And you and your spouse give the special master what's called an order that allows the special master to rule on topics that fall within that order. And the special master's rule is definitive and final and keeps you out of court. So this tip could put, it doesn't cost anything on the front end and potentially will save you a lot of money on the back end. Some attorneys do not support this because clearly it means you're going to need less legal fees after your divorce, but that is something that we do recommend very highly. Also, touch on geography. Okay. Again, this is a common story with interviewees where they didn't really address geography. And 3-4 years later, one of the former married couple meets somebody in a different city, and all of a sudden, or even within the same city but move in a half hour away, which makes one of the partners geographically irrelevant in their children's lives. So addressing geography within the basic MSA agreement will allow for some control, so you can stay, you are assured to stay a relevant contributor in your children's lives.
Can we just back up for a minute on the special master, because I have not heard of that before, and of course maybe our state doesn't do things like that. But tell me a little bit about this special master. Would it be the same as a mediator, or something like that?
Well, if it's mediators who are binding mediators where their ruling is definitive, yes. A special master, Cece, can be, and as far as I know, it can happen in any state. Okay, I don't know of any state that does not allow this, but again, I'm not an attorney. Okay. A special master can be, is commonly an attorney, a co-parent counselor, a therapist, a professional who has familiarity with family court and family court law. Okay. And again, the beauty about this, when let me explain what I meant by the order. The order is what you can determine to allow the special master to rule on. So for example, I'm going to, let's say you and your spouse are of different religions. So you can allow the special master to rule on issues around religious conflicts, around dating, when your children get to an age where they're going to date, around household technology, balancing households so that they have the same level of entertainment and life things in each house that the children are used to. And these are very common things, just throwing some things as an example. Or another one would be the children's extracurricular activities. If there's a
so is this when you can't agree? Is that
correct?
And then this person comes in and makes the decision. So wouldn't that be the same? Well, I know we have a magistrate here, but would that be the same as a magistrate, or so this is not a court appointed?
Yeah. So let me give you an example. There's we also speak in the book of what's called a co-parent counselor. A co-parent counselor is very common for divorced couples to sit with a trained professional once a month or so, and to help reach agreements, particularly during the early years when it's tough to communicate with your spouse or soon to be former spouse. Mm-hmm. The problem with co-parent counseling is it's not obligatory. Okay. But a special master is. So if the topic you take to the special master is within the order that you and your spouse agreed to on the front end, the special master can say, okay, John, I've received your email. I've read it. I've got a couple of questions. Thank you. I've just spent 20 minutes reviewing that. Susan, I've received your email. I've got a couple of questions. I've just spent 25 minutes reviewing that. Okay. So based on what I've seen from both, in this situation, I'm going to side with Susan. And that is now definitive. Here's your bill for 45 minutes of my time. And guess what? You're not going to court. So instead of spending $10,000, $15,000 and having an issue stretch out for months, you just solved it for $300-400, and the stress is off your plate after sending the email to the special master. That's how it works. And the beauty
of this is something. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Is this something that you do after the order from divorce, or is it something you can do both times, before or and even after? Because sometimes the issue comes up later on, even after you've divorced, right after the order.
Correct. So this is why it's important to sit with your spouse. And this is why this is one of the must-haves before you sign your divorce, okay? Because if you have a spouse who is a bit more challenging and can't agree with him or her on topics, once you sign your divorce, that cannot be the end of your problems. It could be the start of a whole new set of problems.
Absolutely.
And the beauty about a special master and the structure around what I described here is that it's kind of like going to a buffet. All right. If you're not that hungry, you put one thing on your plate and that's all you pay for. The special master, once you've written the order, everybody, you only pay for what you use. So the ideal scenario is you set up a special master before you sign your divorce. You create your order and you never use the special master. And that's a situation that you want. It might be a situation where you use the special master once in 5 years. It might be the situation where you use the special master once a year. But it's a complete pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-use situation. And the other part about this, and I speak about this in my book, if you have a former spouse who is obstructive, okay, just the peace of mind of knowing you have a special master and you have a tiebreaker mechanism and you're not going to ever end up in court over something silly, that can really serve to give the divorcee a new lease on life. You can relax, you can move on with your life, and you've got one less big issue to worry about. Because part of the issue that I talk about, actually probably the biggest thing I talk about in my book, is things you do as you get through divorce so you and your children can land in a healthier place. And simply knowing that you're far less likely to end up in court over silly things because your former partner may be obstructive or combative on issues, that will give you so much peace of mind, everybody, and will allow you to be a lot healthier in whatever place you might be in your life. It'll allow you to be a better employee or employer, a better new partner to whomever, and frankly, a better parent.
Mm-hmm. This is awesome. This is something I have not heard of. So I'm really, I'm pleased to, and I've been in this business for a long time and I just haven't heard of this. So this is really great to be able to bring out here and understand, because what happens is, especially when you get divorced and you have little ones, they grow up and you don't know all of the different things that are going to happen within that environment, because you're still a family and you still have to try to work out situations. And it's not always easy when, when you've already gone through the divorce and you're now trying to come up with some sort of way to make things work. And it's nice to know you have a sounding board there. And then also, like you said, a tiebreaker. So, yeah. And again, everybody, the beauty about this is it costs almost nothing to set up. You do a little research in your community. Your an attorney or a therapist may be able to recommend a couple potential special masters. You and your spouse, while you're still married, before you divorce, you interview him or her. You okay, I like this person. Then you come up with your order. Then you're done. And you only use it if you need it. Great. That is absolutely great. That's good advice. Okay, so what's the next one?
Next one, put your children in therapy.
Yeah. And
put them in therapy, ideally, before they learn that mom and dad are going to get divorced. Or mom and mom or dad and dad. Okay, so cover whatever the relationship and partnership is. Mm-hmm. Put your kids in therapy before. Now, this is actually was really one of the how should I say this, Cece? It was one of the more enlightening for me tips that I got into this book. So, as I said, part of the angle of me writing this book is I'm not writing as a therapist, as a divorce attorney, as a mediator. I'm writing as a business person, looking at the different specialists and support people who are there to help divorcees. And it was really a great perspective. It allowed me to identify things that didn't work. And again, every specialist has their own little selfish area where they're trying to promote. But it gave me an ability to be kind of a very even-keeled observer, and then dissect and process this information, speak to more people, and come up with a viable and powerful tip. So there's nothing new about put your children in therapy. Okay, that's been advice for some time. But in one of the children's therapists that I interviewed, she went even deeper on that. She said, okay, the time at which a child learns that mom and dad, dad and dad are not going to stay together. When they get this news, it's a bombshell. Okay, whether it arrives kind of slowly over a year or that sudden conversation, it's something that a child at almost any age will have difficulty to hear. Okay, and it's good to have a therapist there that is completely dedicated to the child and doesn't care about mom, dad, dedicated to the child, and there to help the children. But the therapist's ability to be impactful when the children get the news is minimized if the relationship is new. But if the therapist has a 3 or 4 month foundation where the children already trust the therapist and have a rapport, the therapist has the potential to be far more impactful when the bombshell lands. So the timing of the start of therapy, in short, is also one of the most powerful observations I learned as I put this book together. It's not only about getting your kids in therapy, the type of therapist, the timing, all these points can be impactful in helping your children land in a healthier place.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so really what my takeaway from it is, like, if you're seeing that you're having difficulties, maybe you're not going to get a divorce, right? And we'd love everybody not to do that. But let's say you're having difficulties. Maybe it would be a good time for, both you as a couple to go to therapy, but also your children. And then if something does transpire and you do get a divorce, then you've already got that relationship that's worked out with the therapist and your children. You can actually talk. They can, get through that a little bit easier. That's something we haven't thought about. And so I think that's a great idea, a very great point, which will definitely help parents. And even if you don't get a divorce, you certainly have your child has a good relationship with the therapist that can, be a sounding board for things that they want to talk about, that they feel free to be able to do that. So I'm all for therapy. I'm all for, talking with someone outside of the relationship and everything. We're going to have to take a quick break because time's gone by very quickly, but we've touched on three very important topics so far. We talked about the, what did you call it? The special mastery.
Special master.
The special master, which I never heard that before. Special master, and then the geography. Talk about being aware of the geography, and then also, the therapist. So those are very, very good tips that we've already discussed. So Andy, we have Andy Heller here. He's the author of a wonderful book that's called Take the High Road, Divorce with Compassion for Yourself and Your Family. We're talking about the absolute must-haves before finalizing your divorce. And, I think even maybe finalizing your divorce, but also even after your divorce. And so these are some things that we want to think about to put into play, because as we're going through the divorce, after we're going through the demise of our relationship, there's a lot of factors to think about, not only at the time of the divorce, but also down the road as a family, how we're going to continue on, how we're going to continue to build our family, work with our family, and go on. So these are some really great tips to be able to, excel you into, or pivoting you into that area. So thank you so much, Andy. I really am appreciating all that you're giving us here today. So we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us, and we've got a lot more to cover. So hang in there, okay? Well, hello, welcome back to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You guys are listening to the Going Solo with Cece show. We have a wonderful guest on tonight. I tell you what, we are talking a lot about divorce, how it can help you, not only as you're going through divorce, but even afterwards. We have the author of Take the High Road, Divorce with Compassion for Yourself and Your Family. We've got it in our comments so that you can go to the link right there on Amazon and purchase the book. We hope that you'll do that. Of course, you can find the book anywhere a book is being sold. And so tonight we're talking with Andy, and we're talking about the absolute must-haves before finalizing your divorce. And we touched on three very important things the first part of the show. We talked about the special master, which I'm kind of excited about. We talked about the geography, which is very important because you don't know what's going to happen, as you continue on with your life, where it's going to lead you. And then therapy. So therapy for your children, maybe even if difficulties are happening within the environment, possibly looking at doing some therapy before. So this way, if you are looking at breaking up, it can help your children be able to adjust. So thank you, Andy, so much. We've got so much great information. You're a wealth of information on this, and so we do appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm enjoying the interview.
That's great. Well, let's talk a little bit more. Do you have any more tips for us?
Well, actually, I'm going to highlight something you said before the commercial break, Cece. You don't realize it, but it was actually one of the tips in my book. You talked about having marital counseling in the event that you might or might not stay together. And one of the tips that I offer is, because we don't know the stage at which somebody will pick up my book. Some people might be picking up the book when they're just not happy and they're considering, okay, if this is a path I want to go down, what would it look like for me? And then the book hopefully is a good roadmap for what to do and what that path looks like. But one of the suggestions I offered, you mentioned how go into therapy even if you might not get divorced. Well, one of the most powerful observations you see is almost all adult children will dissect their parents' marriage. And whether their marriage stayed together or didn't stay together, they go and they dissect their parents' marriage. So even if you and your partner are pretty darn certain you're going to go your separate ways, don't be in such a rush that you can't enlist or enroll in therapy for 3 or 6 months for two reasons. One is you never know, you might be a therapy success story. Okay, and in the book we talk about some success stories and some statistics, okay, that are actually fairly encouraging. But in the event that you guys do not stay together, think about that conversation you're going to have with your adult children. Your mom and I, we had some trouble, but we did try in therapy to see if we could work it out. And at the end of therapy, we realized it was just best if we went our separate ways. Your children will feel that the importance of the nuclear family unit was so much more significant if you're able to look at your adult children in the eyes and said, we tried. And part of try includes a commitment to therapy. I think, again, you want your children to have healthy relationships when they become adults. So they should at least know, if mom and dad's relationship did not last, that they committed everything within their power to try to make it work, even if it wasn't meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this definitely makes sense because, our kids at whatever age are looking at us, right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to evaluate as they continue on in their lives, what path they're going to take. And so when we realize that, some things are out of our control and that we need help with, that we go and seek help, makes a huge difference in how they look at their lives and how they approach difficulties in their lives. So we just don't have all the answers in the world, right? And so sometimes we need help along the way, and to connect with people that are professionals that have seen this and experienced it. And so it teaches our kids that they should do the same thing when they go through. And it may not even be divorce. It could be just simple things like career counseling or something like that they just need additional help with, and they don't feel like that it's bad to seek help outside of whatever. And so I think our world is shifting on therapy. It's not a taboo thing to do. It's really an encouragement and helping individuals make the proper decisions for themselves as they move forward. So great advice. So that's wonderful. So anything else that you want to share with us? We probably have time for just a little bit more.
Sure. Well, there's one more must-have I will share with you. The rest will say, guys, you're going to have to get the book for more.
Absolutely.
My publisher would not be okay if I didn't say that. So one other must-have is, the MSA is your legal document. That's your divorce. Okay, it's your divorce Bible. Okay, and you and your spouse will create this MSA with the help, oftentimes, of legal counsel. Okay. And it's very common, sprinkled within MSAs, to have parenting elements to that. Mm-hmm. We recommend to go a step further, and I believe actually some states are requiring this right now, but it's not universal. And that is the inclusion of a specific parenting plan filed within your divorce. Not only a parenting plan, but a parenting plan that you work on with a parenting coordinator. Even if you and your spouse at the time are on good terms and it's amicable, you're probably missing some things that could potentially be conflicts in the future. So having a parenting plan that is, okay, let's say you're on amicable terms with your spouse and you work out a parenting plan. And then you take it to a parenting coordinator who adds 4 or 5 things that you didn't think of. And then that gets filed within the legal document, the MSA. Boy, you're now in a great position. So you've got key things that will be covered as you guys get divorced. So parenting plans include things like how to handle custodial swaps. Okay, if an unexpected relative visits during your former partner's custodial time. Mm-hmm. Somebody has a job change and now he or she travels a bit. Okay, how will that affect the custodial split that's been agreed to? Because when you sign your divorce, neither of you had a job that had any travel. So these are very important things you want to get into a parenting plan. And again, a parenting plan would be basically viewed as a subsection within the overall MSA, as opposed to just putting sprinklings about parenting tips that go here and there.
Yeah, that's great advice. And, it just is what comes to mind to me is that when you're going through such an emotional roller coaster ride as divorce, right?
Yep.
Sometimes you're just not of your sound mind. You're not, your wits are just not around, not with you. You can't think of everything. You really don't even know what to anticipate because, I mean, you probably hadn't been divorced before. And so this is something that it's new to you and you haven't experienced this and you don't know all the ins and outs and what you should think about and what's important and what's maybe not important. And so what comes to mind to me is that a parenting coordinator is a professional. They do this all the time. They probably have checklists and things, ABCs. And when they hear about your situation, even though they've heard time and time again, they'll know, oh yes, well, you've got a child like this, or you've got something that goes on because you might have a child with special needs. You may have, a spouse that travels. You may have, there may be some other things that are a little bit out of the ordinary, but very common to the parenting coordinator. So what comes to mind to me is that the more we can build our team, right? The more we can have professionals involved that do this all the time, that kind of check off ABC, making sure we're covered. We don't have to, worry so much. It takes a burden, a stress level, takes our stress level down a little bit. And maybe we can actually deal with some of the emotional stuff that we really do need to deal with, as we're going through this versus, trying to deal with that and make these important decisions and miss something that we should have maybe had in place that we didn't. So these are great tips, wonderful tips. And I tell you what, guys, if you want more of this kind of stuff, if you're experiencing this or somebody that's going through this, get them the book because I'm telling you, it's all in the book. So if you take it, the book is called Take the High Road, Divorce with Compassion for Yourself and Your Family. It's got all these great ideas, these great tips in there. I mean, Andy Heller is just a guy that got divorced and wrote a book. And so I really do appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you've given to us. So we're going to have to close the show, and this was really a fantastic show. I learned something in the show today. I mean, I think that you've brought a wealth of information, and there's so much more that's inside your book. And so, is there any last words, any last closing that you'd like to share with our audience today?
The only thing I think I'll comment on is I want to kind of read back what you just said in the last couple of minutes on putting together a team to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, I consider myself to be a pretty grounded guy. I've run successful businesses in the past, yet I felt overwhelmed at times, particularly the first few years. And I needed help from professionals whose job is to be there to help my children, to help me. And I'm not just talking about attorneys. I'm talking about co-parent counselors, personal therapists, children's therapists. And one of the things that I credit my ex-wife with, somebody in her world went through a divorce where everything kind of blew up in a day. And she got us set up with some of these support persons. Now, I didn't understand at the time the true depth of what she was doing with this team of specialists she put together. And that's part of the basis behind writing this book, is I realized I was fortunate that my ex-wife knew some of what needed to happen for us and our children to land healthy. A lot of people don't have that insight, and they need a roadmap, which is why I wrote the book. So, Cece, I've so much enjoyed this discussion. And as corny as this sounds, this is something I've done that I'm hoping will help a lot of people. And heck, I know I could have used this on the first day. I learned these lessons, some of them along the way. Many of them I heard from others that had nothing to do with my own experiences. And they're all put together and summarized to be kind of a roadmap for all of you who are about to go through this journey to make it easier for yourself and for your children. So it's been a pleasure being your guest, and I hope that this can help a lot of your listeners.
Well, it's great having you. I've found I was divorced back in 2008, and a lot has evolved, in the system from then. And so it's constantly evolving. And so we need individuals like yourself who has gone through, currently and written a book trying to be able to, get the information out there, because the more information we have, the more power we have, right, to make the right decisions for ourselves and for our families. And so kudos to you for stepping out and doing something that I think really truly is embracing and changing lives. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, and it's my pleasure to be your guest.
It is great. And also, those of you that don't know, Andy is also one of our elite guests, which means that he's part of our Going Solo network. He helps us out. He stands in and does a lot of different things for us. And so we want to really thank you. And we're very appreciative of you helping us in our journey of helping other people move through this, this difficult time, going through divorce and then the transition of being single, trying to learn about yourself and moving through and living your best life. So thank you for that. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, I will say that we do touch a lot on some tips and suggestions about moving back into the single life. We've talked about a lot of other things here, but there is a lot in the book that actually speaks to that exact scenario, which I know that's a lot of your listeners.
Yeah, definitely trying to redefine themselves. That's a real key to once you get through the road of divorce. Then what the heck do you do, right? Who are you? Because before you were always a couple, and so now you're, you might still be mom or dad, but you're someone that is stepping out and embarking on something totally new. And so we need help along the way. So definitely, I think your book is going to help a lot of people. So I want to thank you so much for writing it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, again, everyone, it's on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. I can put up the link, but I don't know if you'd be able to get all of the information, but get it on Amazon there. You can go to our website, which is goingsolomedia.com. Andy has his own page there so that you can click right on, buy the link there. And you can send him an email, let him know that you like it. So he would love to hear from you. So his information is all right there for you so that you can get it pretty easy. Just go to goingsolomedia.com, run to Amazon, click on it, get it. It would be great. So again, the name of the book is Take the High Road, Divorce with Compassion for Yourself and Your Family. Today, we were talking about really some awesome tips, really absolute must-haves before finalizing your divorce. So Andy Heller, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Everybody have a good night.
It's great. And I know we're going to see you back on here on the network doing a lot more things. So we do appreciate it.
Love you.
All right. Thank you so much. I am Cece Shatz. I'm the Doyenne of relationship building. You guys can reach me if you want on goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. And of course, check out our goingsolonetwork.com. That's got all of our information on for singles. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network and the Going Solo TV. Plus, we're going to add the Going Bold TV. So we got a lot going on. So stick with us here. We'll catch you next time. Bye for now.